Hello, everybody. We are reading Stop Overthinking by Nick Trenton. See that right there? We're on chapter 3, ready to get started. Okay, let's take a dive into this one. Chapter 3 is titled Manage Your Time and Inputs. The classic relaxation techniques many people suggest are no help if the cause of our stress is actually poor time management. So you have two options. A magical way to add more hours to the day, or a schedule that better manages your time. While meditation, stretching, and so on can help us deal with the inevitable stress that's on our plates, we can also minimize the stress we're exposed to in the first place by better managing our time. This chapter is all about smart and proven techniques for taking control in this way. Stress Management 101. For many of us, good stress management is good time management. If you find yourself anxious about deadlines, feel rushed, too busy, or overwhelmed, then you may derive more from time management strategies than techniques aimed directly at relaxation. Time management, in turn, often comes down to one fundamental skill: identifying your priorities and using them to guide your goal setting. As usual, it all comes down to mindset. It's weird when you think about it, just how many of us prioritize stress in our lives. We allocate all our available time to activities that worsen our mood and leave us feeling anxious or depleted. What comes to mind is alcohol and partying, okay? And he goes on to say here, when was the last time you deliberately prioritized rest and relaxation? If you're like most people, you always put hard work first and give the crumbs of your time and energy to everything else. One mindset shift is to see rest and relaxation as important and worthy of your focus, and not just something you tack on to the end of a day once more important things are done. And he goes on to say here, a positive attitude is one of your most valuable resources in life. Why not take care of it and nurture these good feelings proactively? You could begin the day with something enjoyable rather than dive into chores and stressful tasks. Now, a long time ago, what comes to mind is I would begin my day with a bong rip. Now, it used to work for me, but if it works for you, that's great. It doesn't work for me anymore. Okay, make a habit of taking 10 minutes break every hour for a nice cup of herbal tea, a stretch, or a walk. Have something to look forward to every day and foster connections with people you care about and who make your life a brighter place. Take time to laugh a little, to play and joke, and do something simply because it makes you happy. You already know about the lifestyle changes you need to make to support yourself physically and cut stress. Sleep well, lower caffeine intake, exercise, eat properly, and so on. But your social, emotional, and spiritual health are important too. If you don't deliberately take time to engage in these things, they simply won't get done. Time management is not just a superficial way to juggle the chores of the day. It's a way to structure your entire life and manage the architecture of your living so that you spend your resources and energy on those things that matter most. It's not just about squeezing as much work into the day as you possibly can, but about balance, right? So balance, you have your work, here you have your personal life, but really it's about integrating your business or your career with your life. So really it's going to be to integrate it, but we understand what he's saying. So about balance and looking at your life with the knowledge that its proportions and priorities reflect your values. Okay, he goes on to say here, it's up to us to consciously steer the direction of life so that we make the most of the time and energy we have. Here's a great general framework for how to do this. And he just lists them. It says, number 1, decide on your values and priorities in life. What 3 things matter most to you? This is a very fundamental question that we often miss. Okay, number 2, observe for a week the way you spend the time available to you. Log every hour and what you do with it. Very basic, but it's a gold nugget, right? Okay, analyze this data. Where do you spend the most time and least time? Okay, and along with number 3, finally look to see if how you actually spend time reflects your values. For example, if you most care about your family, sorry about that. For example, if you most care about your family, building your own business and staying fit, does it make sense that you spend 90% of your waking hours on work alone? Okay, so number 4, guided by your values and principles, restructure your schedule to better reflect your priorities. Number 5, observe again and see how you're doing, what's working, and what adjustments you can make. Okay. There's no point talking about time management without knowing what your goals and priorities are. Okay, that makes sense there. Okay. With your values in mind, you can start to decide what's important and what isn't. For example, you can rank activities and tasks. And what he's talking about here is you can rank them with urgent, important, or not important. Okay. A good time management habit will reflect your unique lifestyle and goals, but there are a few things to keep in mind. And he's just making some notes here. He has them bulleted. So I'll read them to you. Number 1, writing things down makes them more concrete. Have a to-do list, calendar, schedule, or something physical to note your goals daily and track progress. Number 2, break bigger tasks into smaller ones and set mini goals on the way to your bigger ones. Number 3, think process rather than outcome. If you focus on daily helpful habits, you'll achieve more in the long term than if you focused on quick results and perfectionism. Number 4, get used to saying no to things that are not important. It's okay to delegate or draw a boundary to respect your limits. Number 5, continually weigh up your actions to your bigger goals and ask, does this bring me closer or take me further away? Then act accordingly. Okay. Despite knowing better, we sometimes hold on to old patterns of behavior that work against us. Believe me, I know that very well. Okay. Why do some time management techniques work for some people and others not? Here, listen to this. This is a gold nugget. Well, because we're not all the same and we don't all face the same challenges. So my challenges are not your challenges. And he's gonna, this is what he does. He's gonna list some personas. Okay, there are not just time management techniques, but individual time management styles or personas. So for example, the time martyr is the person who accepts everyone else's requests and takes on too much obligation and responsibility, then suffers from it. If this is you, you might gain a surface sense of pride at being so busy, but you're not tackling what's genuinely important to you. The procrastinator has different challenges, delaying any action at all until it's often too late. While some pressure is good for the procrastinator, anxiety only impairs them further. If you procrastinate, you may benefit from breaking things down into small tasks and rewarding yourself for each mini milestone. The distractor has a related problem. They start but are often derailed by distractions and find their attention going all over the place. What works for people with this tendency is to have firmer boundaries and a better consideration for the kind of environment they work in. The underestimator mistakenly thinks tasks will take less time than they really do, and they can miss deadlines because their estimations were too optimistic. Okay, he's saying here, time management also comes down to building in ample time for tackling projects step by step, to give time to appraise the process more realistically. The firefighter, now he doesn't mean literally a firefighter. He's reacting to a person that is in a reactive state of mind, putting out fires all over the place, juggling 1,000 things at once, often when a situation has reached a crisis point. To prevent burnout, such a person can learn to delegate more effectively and better distinguish between issues that are important and those that are urgent. See, so important and urgent. The perfectionist, like the procrastinator, doesn't get things done because nothing ever matches up to their image of the perfect outcome. Often, though, the truth is that perfectionism is hiding a fear of finishing or an intolerance of good enough outcomes that fall along a learning curve. Boundary setting, realistic planning, and delegating can help. So I find that I'm probably each of one of those personas there. Okay, he goes on to say here, it's useful to understand how you are currently acting so you can take steps to improve. Notice patterns and ask, what is hindering me from managing my time better right now? After all, any time management technique is only useful if it actually works for you in your life. And then here in bold it says, how to manage your time, energy, and inputs. And he goes on to say here, Allen's input processing technique. So this technique is great for procrastinators, firefighters, and distractors. So remember, not literally firefighters, but firefighters are people in a reactive state. Okay. It can be helpful for anyone who wants to navigate our information-saturated world. In this technique, data is broadly called inputs. Okay, so it's any stimulus from the environment, like meetings, emails, phone calls, social media, TV, other people, and so on. How do you respond to each of these little hooks that reaches out to grab our attention? Allen's technique claims that unless you plan ahead for how you respond, you're probably doing it suboptimally. Okay. With a plan, you don't have to waste precious time and energy scanning each new input as it comes along. You just make a quick decision and move on to what's really important. First, start by observing your day-to-day life and see if you identify your primary inputs. It doesn't really matter what they are, but that they grab your attention. Next, the big question, how do you respond? Will you act because of this input? See, so it's your response that's going to be very important, right? You need to decide if an input warrants your attention. If it warrants your action. Yes or no. So he gives an example here about a letter. So you open up a letter and whatever it says, do you take care of that immediately or do you put that on the shelf? So if you must act, ask if you have to do it right away. If you must act, right? So if you got to take action, then ask, do I got to do this right away or put it on the shelf? Okay, complete urgent tasks immediately, but if something has to be done later, don't just set it aside so it can sit nagging at the back of your mind. You can immediately schedule in a time on your to-do list for when you will tackle it or set a reminder. See, that's just what I just said. Okay. You need to be consistent, stay on top of things, and simply refuse to allow tasks to pile up. Pounce on any new issues that puts demands on your attention and make a decision on how you will act as early as possible. Is following this link your friend messaged you a priority right now? Is that email you received from your bank important? Guys, this is very, very common. I find myself, with this example that I gave about emails, I find myself in that situation all the time. So Eisenhower's method, it's the former US president, basically his method. The following method is great for firefighters, perfectionists, and time martyrs, since it forces us to efficiently tackle a task when we might not actually have the time or resources to do it properly. A lot of overthinking comes down to juggling too many commitments with too little time or resources. This causes stress, which fuels overthinking. If we cannot avoid such time stress, we can certainly change it or adapt ourselves. Sadly, many of us do too much to do in too little time. Former US President Eisenhower's urgent/important techniques can help and let you cut through what truly matters and what is just acting as a distraction. Okay, so his method, He's just saying, is it important or is it urgent? So he defines it. What's important? Important tasks are those whose outcome brings us closer to our goal. Urgent tasks are those that need immediate attention, often since there is a penalty for not doing so. Okay, so he gives examples of each one, and it's like 2 pages. I'll skip them. Okay, so that's Eisenhower's method. And then there are SMART goals. So if somebody is unclear, okay, you're probably already somewhat familiar with the concept of good goals being those that are specific and time limited, or so-called SMART goals. If somebody is unclear on their path and their values, they are likely to feel overwhelmed and anxious even with low levels of stress. Whereas someone who knows exactly what they want and why can seemingly dig deep and plow through enormous challenges and setbacks. See, this is gold right here. This really is gold, okay? We know that goals can cut through chaos and distraction and bring clarity and focus to our lives. But knowing your values doesn't automatically make you good at setting goals. You need to deliberately make sure you're setting the kind of goals that are most likely to be reached. SMART goals are a roadmap from where you are to where you want to be. So SMART, he gives it it's an acronym. Excuse me. So SMART, it's S is for specific, M is for measurable, A is for attainable, R is for relevant, and T is for time bound. So we're gonna define each one of these. So from the beginning, S is for specific. This cuts down on distractions by definition. Be clear as possible. Don't just say what will happen. Be clear about what you will do in detail. M is for measurable. A good goal can be measured and quantified. Okay. The outcome is not vague or up for interpretation. Answer the question, how will I know my goal has been reached? See, it's measurable. A is for attainable. This means it's realistic for you in your situation. A goal should challenge us to move beyond, but it needs to be possible and reasonable. R is for relevant. Does this goal actually speak to your broader values? Does the smaller goal fit in with your bigger one? And does it make sense in context? T is for time bound. Set a deadline for when the goal should be accomplished by, or outline some time limits. Goals set for someday never materialize. See, goals set for someday never materialize. So you can't just say, oh, someday. I hear that all the time. You got to set a deadline. And let's see. Okay. So that was the SMART method. Now, this one is the Japanese Kanban method. Kanban, or Kanban, Kanban. The Japanese Kanban method originated in a manufacturing context as a way to organize things like factories for maximum efficiency. Look at that. All right. Applied to a personal life, Kanban is great for looking at systems and processes that are already underway and improving them. Note, though, that it cannot help you identify goals or set up systems. Rather, it allows you to continually streamline systems already in place. Okay. Excuse me. I need a sip of water. Okay, so there are 4 foundational principles to keep in mind. Number 1, start with what you're already doing. Number 2, make constant incremental changes for the better. Number 3, respect current rules and limitations. And in parentheses, it says, at least initially. Okay, number 4, think about encouraging leadership wherever possible. I really like that one. Okay, it says here, for our purposes as individuals and not, say, a Toyota factory, it's the second principle of constant improvement. This is gold right here. Okay, it's the second principle of constant improvement. that we're most interested in. The idea is that you actually achieve more by pursuing small, cumulative baby steps rather than trying to make a big, intimidating quantum leap. In Kanban, you use 5 core actions to shape the existing flow and inch it gradually towards something better and better. So here he goes right here, look. So these are the 5 core actions here. Number 1, visualize your workflow. Whether this is literally your occupation or some other work, writing a novel or exercising, put it up on a collage. Put it up on a board so you see it visually step by step. And what I did is I hand wrote collage as a note. So visualize your workflow basically. So you make a collage. Number 2, avoid works in progress. This is great for firefighter or time martyr types. Basically, don't multitask. Pick up one thing, give it your full attention, complete the task, then pick up the next. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, number 3, manage the flow. Look to see how your attention, time, and energy is flowing from task to task. This could be as simple as noticing that you get 2 chores done in one car trip rather than wasting time and fuel on 2 separate ones. Okay, so that's pretty good. Number 4, set up feedback loops. In the business world, this is called fail fast and fail often. But really, what it means is that you need to build in time to consistently check in with how you're doing, adjust, and repeat. Look at your process and your efforts and see if they're actually working, which you can do because you set SMART goals, measurable goals. Okay. Number 5, improve, collaboratively, evolve experimentally. I'll repeat that. So number 5, improve collaboratively, evolve experimentally. This concept is a little less applicable to ordinary life, but in a non-commercial setting, it teaches us to apply the scientific method to everything we do. We can establish a hypothesis, test it, and refine our knowledge by constantly using experiments. Okay. And here he talks about time blocking. Okay. With time blocking, you dedicate certain blocks of time in your schedule to one task and that task alone, rather than multitasking or rapidly switching between this and that. You want to encourage deep work and get engrossed in what you're doing rather than shallow attention on many things at once. Okay. And I wrote a check mark here to mention it. It's saying, start by asking what you hope to achieve with a day or a week, or what priorities you want to focus on. This will guide your approach, right? So this is time blocking, right? Next, block in the priority task first, planning them for when you know you'll be most alert and energetic. Keep these blocks as undivided as possible. Okay, then find room for less important shallow work and schedule for times when you are not as productive. Like for me, like raking leaves or doing yard work, right? So it's just making blocks of time to do whatever you need to do and just dedicate yourself to that one thing. I've done that many, many times. Remember, your schedule is there to help you be in control. It's not in control of you, okay? So we're finished with chapter 3. I'll see you in the next video.